Welcome to the MontCAS Test Security and Data Integrity video series. The purpose of this video is to provide the viewer with an in-depth dive into the three MontCAS accessibility features and how these are used in assessment. This video will explore these three objectives so the viewer can complete this training with the following understandings. Universal features, also called universal tools on the Smarter Balanced Assessment, are available to all students as they access instruction or assessment content. Universal features may be embedded or non-embedded. Although universal features are generally available to all students, educators may determine that one or more might be distracting for a particular student and may need to indicate that the feature should be turned off for the administration of the assessment. Educators need to pay special attention to non-embedded universal features to make sure they are provided. Designated features are those features that are available for use by any student for whom the need has been indicated by an educator or team of educators who are familiar with the student's characteristics and needs. Parents and guardians may be included, and student input is recommended. It's assigned via consent process by considering student characteristics and needs. Assessment supports reflect instructional supports. IEP or 504 teams determine supports. Accommodations are changes in procedures or materials that ensure equitable access for instructional and assessment content and generate valid assessment results for students who are receiving services under IDEA or Rehabilitation Act. 5-step decision-making process. Step 1. Expect students to achieve grade level standards. Step 2. Learn about accessibility supports for instruction and assessment. Step 3. Identify accessibility supports for instruction and assessment. Step 4. Administer accessibility supports during instruction and assessment. Step 5. Evaluate use of accessibility supports in instruction and assessment. Step 1. Expect students to achieve grade level standards. Education is a basic right for all children. Teachers ensure that all students work toward grade level standards and ensure that all students participate in statewide assessments, regardless of disability, EL status, or difficulty in testing the student. Teachers use a range of instructional strategies, differentiation, accessibility supports, and accommodations to ensure students can access grade level instruction and assessment. Educators are responsible for developing, implementing, and improving accessibility practices for students. Step 2. Learn about accessibility supports for instruction and assessment. Accessibility supports and accommodations provided to students do not reduce expectations for learning. They meet specific needs of students and enable educators to know that measures of a student's work produced are valid results. The accessibility supports and accommodations provided to students on statewide assessments must also be provided during instruction, classroom assessments, and district assessments. When determining accessibility supports and accommodations, it is important to remember that different assessments have different constructs. Remember, what is provided on assessments must be provided in instruction, but some things that are provided in instruction are not appropriate for assessments. Step 3. Identify accessibility supports for instruction and assessment. Identify student characteristics by gathering information from academic achievement, parents and guardians, student strengths, familiar educators, EL, IEP, 504, and RTI plan. To support student-specific disability and need, teachers should review instructional task and grade level expectations, grade level content standards, and how the student will demonstrate proficiency. Once accessibility supports are identified, then the support should be consistent within instruction and assessments in the classroom, district, and statewide. Step 4. Administer accessibility supports during instruction and assessment. Identified supports and accommodations are communicated to educators for implementation. Supports and accommodations are provided during instruction. Assessment coordinators and educators communicate and coordinate so that the supports and accommodations are provided. Step 5. Evaluate use of accessibility supports in instruction and assessment. Collect data on the use of accessibility supports and analyze and adjust accessibility supports. Accommodations help certain students access the general education curriculum, should be familiar to the student, and used in instruction and assessment throughout the year and at least 3 months before statewide assessments. Students' parents and guardians should be knowledgeable about the supports and accommodations planned for their child, so they are aware of the conditions under which their child will participate in the assessment. Golden rules for accessibility, used in instruction and assessment for at least 3 months before the assessment. Determined on an individual basis. Decision made by a team. Maintain high expectations for all students. Reduce barriers so students can meaningfully access and participate in statewide assessments. This slide focuses in on the last step in the process, which is step 5. Evaluate use of accessibility supports in instruction and assessment. Collect data on the use of accessibility supports. Analyze and adjust accessibility supports. In this evaluation phase, ask yourself the following questions to better support students with accessing and meaningfully participating in statewide assessments. What are the results of classroom assignments and assessments with and without supports? What is the student's perception about the support? Helpful, not helpful? What combinations of supports seem to be effective? What are some difficulties experienced in the use of supports? What are the perceptions of the student's educator about how the support is working? Have the student's characteristics changed over time to warrant a change in the accessibility plan? With the right tools, we can identify barriers and remove them so that learning and assessment is accessible and inclusive for all students. UDL aims to change the design of the environment rather than to change the learner. When environments are intentionally designed to reduce barriers, all learners can engage in rigorous, meaningful learning. Assessments are essentially a reflection of that learning. With the MontCAS program, we publish guidance to assist educators with the appropriate selection of accessibility supports and require educators to use a systematic, data-based, needs-based process by educators familiar with individual student needs. Now please take a moment to complete these H5P questions before we move on to the next concepts.